to the Neurogenic Integration Podcast, where we explore the incredible potential of neurogenic tremoring beyond the basics. I'm Alex Greene.
And I am Sylvia Song-Shields. Together, we'll be diving into how this natural, innate process can be seen and applied across different professions, healing modalities, and in scientific research.
Whether you're a practitioner, a coach, a therapist, a body worker, or a researcher, this podcast is for you.
Join us as we uncover the science, share experiences, and explore how neurogenic integration is revolutionizing the way we approach stress, trauma, and well-being.
So take a breath, get comfortable, and let's dive in. All right. Well, I am very excited to sit down this afternoon with Lindsay Wolff. And I'm in Boulder, Colorado as normal. And Lindsay is, I think you're in St. Louis today. Is that true?
I am. St. Louis, Missouri. Happy to be here.
Awesome. So Lindsay is a certified health coach and a mentor with the Primal Trust Program, which I'll talk more about in a little bit. And she works with guiding clients with somatic nervous system regulation and neural retraining. And as she said, she's based in St. Louis, Missouri, and she specializes in supporting sensitive nervous systems and people navigating complex health challenges. And I got to know Lindsay through Kathleen King, who's the founder of the Primal Trust community and framework. And if you haven't heard of it, Primal Trust is an online program and community of people and I'll let Lindsay share more about it, but it's about nervous system regulation, especially for healing complex health challenges, things like chronic fatigue syndrome, chronic pain, fibromyalgia, Lyme disease, things that have been chronic conditions that people have had trouble resolving. Dr. Kat is a physical therapist by education, who's then done a lot of applications of functional medicine and integrating somatic practices, things from somatic experiencing, all over the place, putting together kind of a comprehensive community and program that has just really been a successful one of supporting people with chronic pain, chronic illness. I've connected with her in that community quite a bit. Dr. Kat has been on the Redbeard Embodiment podcast before, and so you could go back and watch an episode with her describing the method and the work. But in any case, I connected with Lindsay earlier this year because Dr. Kat recommended her. I was looking for the neurogenic integration community and platform. We wanted a workshop that on the theme of nervous system regulation for chronic pain and chronic illness. And so I thought of Dr. Kat and Primal Trust because they're so specialized in that area. And Dr. Kat said, you know who you really should work with for that workshop is Lindsay. And so that was the beginning of a connection there. So later this year in December, Lindsay's going to be offering a program through the Neurogenic Integration Platform, a 2-hour workshop. And she'll be sort of talking about the chronic health side of things and the Primal Trust framework and experiential exercises. And then I'll support by guiding a tremor experience in that workshop. So anyway, that's coming up, I think, December 18th. We can talk a little bit more about that. In any case, that's a long introduction, but Lindsay, I'm so glad to have a chance to sit down with you and just hear about your own journey in this world of nervous system work and all of the above. So welcome.
Thanks. It's so special to be here. I'm really touched by the community you created. And I'm so excited to share about Primal Trust and what brought me here, the crazy turn of life events that, got me here.
Yeah. Could we start there? Like kind of, what got you, what brought you into this domain of work in the first place?
Yeah. My story is so representative of so many people who enter into Primal Trust, so many people who are on the chronic illness recovery journey, or if they haven't recovered. And it's almost become, the more I do this work, I almost have seen sort of this like algorithm of what sets people up for chronic illness. And it's usually an intense, stressful event or some repressed emotional event that creates a dysregulated nervous system. Often there's a trigger like mold or even like a chemical sensitivity that just creates a tipping point in the biology and the psyche, really, that puts people into chronic illness. And that whole framework of understanding chronic illness is not really talked about that much in sort of the allopathic traditional understanding of chronic illness in the nervous system. So my story is I was a very hardy athlete in college. I was a backpacking guide in Colorado. I was really just the picture of health. I went through some really intense stress in college, was pretty functional for a few years, but now that I know the algorithm and sort of the arc of chronic illness, I can see, okay, my nervous system was becoming more dysregulated. Slight things were changing in my body. My eyes were getting drier. I couldn't wear contacts anymore. Subtle things that the body was trying to communicate. Your nervous system is changing. But I didn't have any of this education and framework, of course.
Yeah.
And then I moved into a moldy house when I was living in Nashville after college. And it was, so many people have this story. It's huge crash, catastrophe. Like I woke up, I remember it was May 25th, 2010. I'll never be the same. Just overnight, my health had completely crashed. And I was bedridden for almost a year with living with my parents. It was just awful. And also the tragic part of this, the arc of this story, is that I spent almost a decade bouncing from doctor to doctor, as so many people do.
Yeah.
And then my husband and I moved to Seattle to work on a farm and be close to a Lyme doctor. Shout out to Dr. Wakely, the best doctor I've seen yet. He was a naturopath, but actually we lived on a farm 10 minutes from the ocean, right in the Cascade Mountains, and it was the regulation of being in nature, I think, it opened my eyes to, oh my gosh, I could take all the supplements in the world, I could get all the injections, but I was really starting to get into DNRS at that time, and just, it was like a moment of enlightenment where I was like, wow, none of these physical tools are really going to do much for me if my nervous system's dysregulated. And so years later, I'd done so many different nervous system programs, but Primal Trust was really the whole package for me. It still is, and why I work there now. I'd love to talk about it. And I can get into it more, but that is sort of the arc of the story that brought me, through a truly like hellish experience. Just so many people have this experience.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
and not to drudge up painful or stressful memories, but I'm like, when things were pretty bad, not yet on the road to recovery, what's a snapshot? What's some of the primary barriers or things that you struggled with?
Yeah, crazy fatigue, just like bone crushing fatigue. Just could never experience anything like in my life. Just a series of infections, Lyme disease diagnosis. I forgot to say that. It felt like anything and everything. And the more I went to doctors, the more I got more diagnoses. Crazy, like hip pain, sinus infections. It was just like whack-a-mole. It was like one thing would resolve, the next thing would pop up.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
and just also like, and Primal Trust does such a good job addressing this, like the identity of who I was just like shattered. It was
Right.
it was this like active, great student, athlete, and then I was like bedridden. It's like, who are you? When your health is taken away, it's like your identity is, especially as a young person, is just so enmeshed with that. So
Yep.
not fun at all.
Yeah. Wow. Well, maybe so it sounded like, that change in setting and kind of being in a natural setting kind of opened your eyes to, kind of it wasn't going to be the supplements. It was, there was some other way but then, yeah, take us a little further on that. Like,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I'm a person, and I think a lot of people in this population of chronic illness that are just sensitive, but also like deeply in need of living in alignment with nature. even if they're not nature people, it's just the environment of our world, our modern world, is so foreign to our ancestral DNA. And so after we left Seattle, I came back to St. Louis, and we live in an urban environment, and my health crashed again. And so I knew that it was like putting the pieces together experientially. Like, I knew my nervous system needed something, but I couldn't figure it out. And this was before I had any of the Primal Trust tools. But there's also this sort of like true self rediscovery that had to happen for me to come back to the truth of who I am and what kind of life I wanted to rebuild after illness. I mean, you really have to have a strong vision for what you want instead of illness, like in some, as we call in Primal Trust, something to rewire toward. And and so that has been, a theme of my recovery has been getting and living as close to nature as possible, but also my own true nature, who I am, and constantly having to use tools of self-inquiry and understanding to know that I'm living in integrity with myself at every turn. That is such a huge part of recovery.
Yeah.
And when you're sensitive, every little thing that you say yes to, but your body says no to, it will let you know.
Yeah.
And it's sort of annoying, but it's like this gift too. Like, it's just
Right.
this true attunement to the self and to the nervous system. And along the way, years before I discovered Primal Trust, I discovered TRE it was like a weird flyer on the side of a street. I saw it
Where
advertised.
do you remember where and when?
Yeah, it was in the Central West End. This instructor's name was Robin. I can't think of her name or her full name, but it was here in the city of St. Louis. And I remember it said, releasing tension and trauma from the body. And I was like, that's me. I have so much tension.
Right.
And so I went to the workshop, and it blew my mind, because I was like, it was fascinating to me that I could access this level of involuntary tremoring the body.
Yeah.
And I almost get emotional even thinking about that day, because it was talking about, thinking about coming back to our true nature, like the repression of this expression in the body, like, what? Why isn't everyone talking about this?
Right.
Yeah, it was very, very profound. And I still do the tremoring every single day, just in little bits, like.
Yep.
So that was sort of a major turning point for me in really bridging the mind-body divorce of chronic illness.
Yeah.
Being so in my head with supplements and drugs and antibiotics for the Lyme, it's such a heady mental experience.
Right. And testing your biofilms and all this. Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Yes. But there's no conversation about the body and just the trauma of all of that. It's such a bizarre, it's actually not bizarre, because I've been in the medical system enough where I'm like, wow, this really is the most divided system ever.
Right.
So yeah, that when I started doing TRE, I was like, I have a body? What? It's amazing. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. Okay, I just lost my train of thought. But okay, but super cool. So maybe zoom forward for a minute, and actually, yeah, can you just tell us a little bit of, I explained Primal Trust in the rudimentary way that I can, but could you just sort of share for an audience who doesn't know what Primal Trust is, could you give an introduction to it, including, if this isn't adding too much, kind of how it locates in that bigger field of brain retraining? I'm thinking of things like DNRS, which you mentioned, Gupta, things like. So could you just kind of tell us about Primal Trust and situate it for us in that field?
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah. What makes Primal Trust different and special is there are three sort of levels to Primal Trust. And the first one, Dr. Kat does a really good job at pacing the introduction of the tools, because a lot of these programs just sort of they kind of like throw you into the deep end. And so the first bulk of maybe a couple months people spend are really these bottom up practices of TREs in the first level. Once you kind of get into it, a lot of functional neurology, eye movements, breath work. There is a big part of it is visualization, which a lot of other programs share,
Okay.
but it's also very much rooted in polyvagal theory, which is sort of mapping out the state of the nervous system at any given moment. And there is so much empowerment in Primal Trust for people who have been thrown around from program to program, because you are creating calm in the system without needing a supplement, a consultation, paying anyone. I mean,
Right.
Primal Trust is a subscription thing, but it's very
Yeah, it's
much
very
empowered.
affordable. Yeah, and then you're learning inside out tools, regulation tools.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, it really like tools like, gosh, you'll use your entire life. If you're in a human body, it's like you need these tools. Like they're just so essential for living in, the stress of life.
Yeah.
And so the first couple months of Primal Trust are spent in that, really bit by bit. And I call it with my clients I mentor, it's sort of like snacking on these tools all day.
Mm.
It's really a lifestyle.
Mm-hmm.
So, having the ability to do some functional movement or functional neurology eye movements like before you get on a meeting or do anything stressful,
Yeah.
it's and that is how essentially you kind of like make friends again with your body and nervous system, because you're showing it a new way, and you're sort of like reparenting the nervous system.
Yeah.
It's like this is sort of, it's almost like I say a lot, it's like kind of like having a chiropractic adjustment, and like all day you're kind of just like coming back into alignment a
Mm.
little bit more, a little bit more, and eventually the system sort of learns to hold that regulation more.
Yep.
So that's the first chunk of
Early
Primal
stage. And
Trust.
can I jump in for a quick second?
Yeah, yeah,
Because
please.
I did not go through levels 2 and 3, but I went through level 1, so I followed that curriculum. And to me, the other thing that was useful, at least for the way my brain works, I mean, in some ways I already knew the polyvagal physiology and this and that, although some of the commentary with the cell danger response was a little bit newer for me. But so something I appreciated about the way that she constructed the program is that there is sort of like, it's like, here are our without getting overly technical, but being specific and technical enough, there was kind of like that left-brained science. It's like, well, what's our newest, most current understanding of stress physiology from a polyvagal perspective, from a cell danger response? And to me, I think that's useful. So she introduces some concepts that then, you then are getting into experiential work. And as you say, learning kind of what makes you tick and learning to sense and feel when you deviate from regulation, when you're moving closer towards a regulated state, and being able to
Yeah.
hone your sense of that. And then what are the things that steer things, and whether that's breath, whether that's movement, whether that's eye work, whether it's resourcing or something sort of through a visualization. But I think for a lot of people getting that, to me, there's this marriage of kind of a left-brained framework and then inviting the right-brained experiential practices that help guide things a little bit.
Totally. I think the educational part is really essential if you're doing this work, to understand the brain science of how a neuroplastic brain works. Every time we choose differently, that's like neuroplastic gold. We're like, it's not just random doing these visualizations and corrective exercises. It's like a truly changing the structure of our brain. It's really exciting.
Mm. Yeah, well, so then that, there. I mean, I don't know if you're going to go into levels 2 and 3, but what I was going to jump in there with is, this concept of neural retraining, and that that implies, and I've heard the term limbic. I think I mean limbic training or something like that. Maybe you could explain a little bit about what is meant by that brain retraining What it,
Mhm.
unpack that.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think when people speak about limbic training, but they're addressing the limbic region of the brain, which is sort of the fear amygdala center where a lot of the dysregulation happens. And so much about the training, the brain training is, the brain is all about association. So if Dr. Kat gives this example in the level one training, holding this tennis ball. And if you've been told your life, this tennis ball is horrible, this tennis ball is evil, like all this conditioning, your nervous system will be like, oh my gosh, get me away from that tennis ball.
Right.
But if you're told this tennis ball's amazing, it's going to change your life, your brain's like, I want that.
Right.
And it's just this sort of computer of association building.
Yeah.
And so that is kind of, I think, the heart of a lot of these programs are just trying to create a safe association with stress,
Mm.
with not eliminating stress because that is we live in a stressful world,
Right.
but it's building the nervous system capacity to have these sort of widening circles of ability, capacity, mentally and in the nervous system to just handle the stress of life
Mm.
a little bit more easily and gracefully. And we still live in human bodies. Like this isn't about this sort of fairy tale of living in a symptom-free, like perfect body.
Right.
It's just expansion capacity, and teaching the nervous system, slowly training it. Incremental training is a phrase used in this industry a lot of sort of challenging the nervous system with new exposure, new experiences. And that can be a way that we train the limbic system to have more capacity and change associations.
And kind of change the set point. Like if you think of the amygdala like a thermostat or something, it's like increment, sort of progressive incremental change might be able to change the threshold at which it really kicks into gear or things like that. Is that part of it?
Totally. Yeah.
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 That's it. Yeah. Yeah. It's sort of like giving it little. Well, I will say this sort of brings me into the level two, the spirit of level two, which, some people have amazing capacity building, symptom clearing experiences in level one alone. But ultimately, I think I think of level these sort of bottom up practices like TRE, like functional neurology, as almost like training the nervous system to get into the emotional processing work that often is the true origin of what has dysregulated the nervous system, whether it's a trauma, just the things that we experience in life that are emotionally overwhelming to the nervous system,
Right.
So a big part of Primal Trust and this work is called cultivating an adult main personality. And in parts work or IFS, it's the self energy. Same
I was
thing. People call
yesterday,
this a lot.
just literally yesterday, because I do IFS with clients, and
Okay.
and just yesterday I have a client who's a primal trust. I don't know what you call yourselves, primal trustee or something like that.
Yeah.
And yes, and I love that component of it because yeah, to me I know exactly what's meant by that adult main personality. And I love that language. And in IFS we say capital S self, but I often substitute that for your adult consciousness or and so it's I really like that parallel a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I like your wise one. I
Yeah.
say a lot. Um, and that is sort of we can kind of train the physiology to be able to handle the trauma processing from the sort of psyche state of the self, going into the body, feeling more safety and more security within the body to access trauma, I mean, it doesn't have to be big trauma. It can just be, being a people pleaser, being a
A perfectionist.
perfectionist.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. All these qualities are tremendously burdensome on the nervous system.
Yeah.
And they can be.
Yeah.
So, yeah, and then the love, Primal Trust I was a member for 2.5 years before I became a staff person because it's just this sort of curriculum for living a whole regulated life. There's a lot of framework around the hero's journey, the Joseph Campbell's hero's journey, living a values-based life, having difficult conversations, um, and then ultimately what we call in Primal Trust the pit, getting into the core root emotion of what sort of drives the nervous system into dysregulation, or drove it into in the first
Yeah.
place.
Yeah. Wow.
It's a lot,
It is a lot.
right?
Well, okay. So you felt you were in the program for a while, and then you felt the call, evidently, to step in to the level of mentoring and teaching. Can you share a little bit about that? Yeah, like
Yeah.
that decision, but then also what that, what is your work as a mentor and a coach? What's that like? What does it entail for you?
Yeah, I think mentorship is really it's so life-giving for me. I mean, it really just is very moving personal work for me because I feel my greatest credential is having gone through, over a decade of this ride, this crazy repatching my nervous system and life together.
Yeah.
But mentorship is really about um, holding space for another person's journey through the Primal Trust content. A lot of it is about facing resistance, the resistance we face to do the practice, to go into the harder emotional territory. Um, but it's such a joy to just be with and presence with people who are so in their heart wanting to get their health back. Like just the most sincere, sweet people
Yeah.
that have been through a really broken system and some inevitably end up in primal trust. And I just really get it. And that enough, I think, has just been awesome chemistry for me and
Mm.
the clients I work with. Um, and then I'm also going to I teach some of the level 3 classes, which is our like sort of more expansive curriculum around a tool that's been the most helpful for me in my re-regulation journey is Nicole Sachs journal speak, which is an expressive writing technique born out of the work of Dr. John Sarno. Some people may know him as he wrote Healing Back Pain, a
Right.
few other books about the
Absolutely.
mind
Yeah.
connection. Yeah, yeah. So the essence of journal speak is this expressive 20-minute writing, and it's not about writing about the story of what happened. It's like just the raw, unfiltered emotion, and that is sort of where we kind of go in the deeper end of primal
Mm.
trust. There's so much to it, Alex. I know I feel like I'm throwing so much at you, but
No,
um,
no, no. It's
yeah,
very interesting, and to me it makes sense. It hangs together. Um, cool. So you teach the journal speak framework. People that's part of it. In the mentoring work, is that one-on-one stuff? Are there group containers? Like what is that like?
yes. There are, let's see, I think we have about 8 mentors now. I work one-on-one. There are other mentors who do kind of group coaching. It's more affordable. It's kind of a community experience.
Hmm.
And one of my other ambitions at Primal Trust is we're really reformatting our community. We have so many people joining every month. So we're really trying to create a cohort experience where you join, you have your people, you have a trained guide to take you through. And so you're just kind of not lost in the abyss of content. And that's one of the really special things that kept me in Primal Trust so long. There's so many opportunities for to have a buddy, to have a mentor, a group you kind of journey with. It's just so much more fun too.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, it's kind of like a throwback to your backpack. Didn't you say you did wilderness guiding? Yeah, there's like
Yeah,
maybe a
yeah,
few parallels. I don't know. I don't know if there are, but yeah,
totally. There are, yeah,
yeah,
there really are. It's kind of a full circle thing for sure.
yeah. Interesting.
Yeah.
Well, what have you mentioned that tremoring in TRE was very value has been very very valuable for you. It sounds like you're a regular, you access that regularly and have found how it serves you. Well, what do you see with others and it's introduced in level 1. It's Eric Robbins, and that's how I know Dr. Cat is through Eric. So they
Okay.
give that primer there. Yeah, what have you seen or heard with others? The tremoring component. Well, yeah, I'm curious about that.
Yeah, totally. I think a lot of people in this population have a tremendous amount of fascial tension, myself included. I'm still kind of working out. And maybe we can like, you can educate as I talk about this, because there's so much um, physical tension in people who have long chronic illness. And as they say, the issues get stuck in your tissues. And so it's always a tool I direct people to who have stiffness, tension, just a feeling of bracing. You know, the nervous system and the physiology are stuck in like a bracing, protective.
Yeah.
It's physical, but it's also emotional. It's like a client just told me yesterday, like, I'm so scared of life. I'm so scared of like life coming at me. It's just so it's such a fight or flight or even a shutdown kind of posture toward life. And so
Yeah.
the TRE, I think, can also, I think one of the powerful things about it is reintroducing some physical releases without necessarily having to get into the whole story and trauma in the mind of what
Right.
happened.
Yeah.
It's just sort of this like natural discharge. And I think that that can feel really safe um, for people with chronic illness, because it's just, it just is, it's sort of like taking the charge out of the whole going through it mentally experience. Does that track for you?
Oh, it totally tracks. I mean, there's people, and it's not an either or, and there's also in betweens, because there's some people when they tremor, it is a pretty emotional experience, or it very much does connect them into, they're thinking of memories, and and if they learn to do it with self-regulation, then that's constructive. That feels good. That's part of a processing experience. But for as many people as there are like that, where there's a strong connection into memory and emotion, I would say that's maybe only a third of the average tremor, or maybe 2/3 is that during the tremoring itself, it's not a particularly emotional or psychically oriented. It's a pretty sensation based practice. Now later on, they may get the sort of benefits, or a very common experience is somebody tremors, and later on some emotion surfaces that hadn't been able to as easily, or they can express themselves in a different way. But I totally agree with you that there's a lot of folks where it's like being able to set aside the cognitive lens for, and really just truly try to find the body imprint. And does the body want to do anything in terms of expressing movement, or letting go, as you said, of fascial patterns? In TRE, we talk about the posture of trauma, like, the kind of bracing that you refer to. And I think that's one of the really direct things that neurogenic tremoring can help with, is just literally open up. We use the slide when we teach, where it's sort of like a jellyfish kind of pulsating. That's sort of one half of the slide. And then the other half of the slide is like a human rib cage, and the heart and the lungs and the diaphragm moving. And I always say, okay, when we teach TRE, we kind of go through a lot of different pieces of the neurophysiology and the theory. But then I get to that slide and I say, the common sense understanding of TRE is in fact maybe the most important one. And our common sense way of describing the function of tremoring is that organisms under stress or threat tend to compress and contract and restrict mobility of their tissues, and the rhythmic flows of things like breath and other flows as well. And so that organisms under threat, they tend to restrict. And that's true for amoebas, and it's true for, sort of like true throughout like all segments of the animal kingdom. And it's true for mammals, and it's true for human beings. And that Dr. Purcell's, in a sense, initial insight was, well, I see people contracting all the time, because he was in scary war situations. And he said, well, if we just stay like that, but is there something that brings us the other direction? and he saw people tremoring organically and spontaneously, and eventually he sort of clicked for him. Like, usually we just think that somebody's just in some fear state, that's why they're tremoring. But hey, maybe that's just maybe that's the opposite. It's like, if we have a way of bracing, maybe we have a biological process of unfolding from that bracing. And there may be other ways to unfold from bracing than just tremoring, but it seems to be a pretty key biological one because we see it in other animals and things like that. So I think so again, coming back to the common sense version, it's like organisms restrict and they brace, and that if there's not safety, but there is a way to undo that, and when they feel safe, and then they can come back into a felt sense of expansion, and fascially there's more space, and mentally there's more space. So that's kind of that's the very common sense model that when we that we think tremoring is essentially just opening up bracing patterns.
Wow, so amazing. Something I love Dr. Kat has offered about entering into tremoring with a more sensitive population is she had this cool idea of making like a playlist of songs like that start from like a slower
Mm,
tempo
mm,
and kind of pick up the pace. And I definitely have those too. And sort of having like a peak tremoring experience. And that was when I started to sort of open up and have more emotional releases when I tremored. But it was really nice. I would start with like cello music, sort of slowly letting the body I hear about those, fascial unwindings.
sure.
And then as the tempo like goes in the song, I love to tremor to the Cranberries. It's just like it gets me going, like feels so
That
good.
would
Love
work
the
for me
Cranberries.
too. I'm going to do that. Okay. Yeah.
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 Yeah, it just feels so good. And that was when I started to have more of just the tears and also the repressed joy, the repressed joy of missing a decade of my life and
Yeah.
like loving the Cranberries, loving whatever it is, and just being like, oh my God, I'm in my body. It feels so, so good to have that release.
Mm,
So I think that like when you're in a real functional freeze, sort of dorsal vagal shutdown state, like so many people who enter Primal Trust are,
mm,
TRE is like a very it's getting to know this really, really natural part of our physiology, our biology. And then as we kind of move up the polyvagal ladder and get out of such a frozen state, that brace state, the emotions can kind of start to flow. So like I've noticed that in my clients, like the more they TRE, the more they start to feel.
mhm.
It's so interesting.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Amazing.
Super amazing.
Yeah.
I have felt through my work with some of the Primal Trust community, not only through them. I mean, I've learned this additionally that there are. Uh, I've had to widen my sense of kind of like of. I've had to expand my sense of what the right um, cadence and dosing is for tremoring, and because I work with people, and what I really try to do now is not make many assumptions, because just because I've had 10 people with fibromyalgia, and on average they tend to need, if they tremor too long, then it flares up their symptoms. But there's always the exceptions to that. But this idea that, something that was not all that included in my original TRE training, but now has become pretty clearly part of the way I work, is this idea of titrating down to very, very, sometimes very small doses of, sometimes 30 seconds, 60 seconds as sort of the initial, some systems that are more sensitive, they require a smaller unit of application initially, and then how does that reverberate through the system and integrate. And then, typically speaking, we would then sort of expand as capacity builds. But I'm curious for
Yeah.
you, and it sounds like for you on your, what have you seen with that, both for yourself or for others in the Primal Trust community?
Yeah, titrating TRE. I mean, titration is such a important way. I mean, it's sort of like being in what we talked about, the adult male personality. It's sending the safety signals to your body of like, I'm not going to blow you out of the water.
Yeah.
I'm going to do this in a safe, graduated way. And that really can build a lot of safety with the system, especially for personalities who are just like so eager to heal, like rushing to heal.
Yeah.
So I think that's why I like this like approach of like slow music, or just like opening space up to lie on the floor, and just, if nothing happens, it's okay. Releasing the expectation of big, breakthrough moment or something. Just letting it be like, I have a lot of tension in my hand. Work on the computer a lot, hand and shoulder, and so sometimes I would just start my TRE journey with letting my hand kind of flop around, just unwind, that fascial unwinding. And it wasn't like this whole body tremoring. It was just like, oh, hand wants to do that.
Yeah.
And that was a way of not comparing myself to the way I was trained to do it, or the way I saw it, just like respecting the body's unwinding experience, like however it wants to start. So I think eliminating the pressure. A client actually said to me yesterday, I'm afraid to TRE because I see these people on Instagram having these huge
I know.
they're being like a demon's being exercised out of them or something. Like they just look terrifying. And so just coming back into like,
wow. There might be a few of the TRE Instagram channels, but there's all these sort of, in my mind, to me, the biggest the people where I see the most, where I see that tendency the most is with the, is with the modern breathwork movement. And I think breathwork is phenomenal, and is a really cool thing that breathwork has proliferated in the ways that it has. But where I see the, but I guess it's not only that. I think some of the fascial release channels, they really try to select for these big cathartic demon releasing kinds of experiences. And we see those things in TRE, but like usually there's like something that leads towards that. Like that's, it's contextualized by lots of sessions that aren't like that. So I do sometimes think that that aspect of expressive release, whether it's through TRE or through breathwork, which can also be very expressive. And I guess that's the way that Instagram works, is like, things really want to select for things with high drama, but that's a little bit of a disservice. Yeah. It's, to me, that bias is a disservice to the industry a bit.
Yeah. Well, I think also with titration, like, and coming into this with a really gentle, safe way, is, I like to do my TRE practice alone in a closed door.
Sure.
And I see it's taught, and facilitated in groups a lot. And I think that can be just an individual thing. But the more like loose and wild I've gotten in my practice, I'm like, I don't really actually want anyone to watch me TRE.
Totally. Yeah. No, well, that's what I tell clients and students all the time, is like, that's actually something I really like about TRE, is that there's some people who are going to do their best work, like with one-on-one facilitation. There's co-regulation, somebody can, they're being witnessed. So there's powerful things in that one-on-one container. But some of those people might say, oh, doing it alone, that feels off. I can't even really do it. And then there's other people for whom their sweet spot is absolutely the privacy of their own home. No one else is there. Anything can come. Maybe their dog is with them or something like that. So for other people, that's the really rich and useful container. And then there's other people who like something about being in a group, like you can sort of feel the others or lean into the group, and there's community, but you're not being singled out. For other people, that's sort of the conditions under which they get a lot out of the practice. Or there's lots of people who get something different out of those different, depending on the context, they may have a different experience. But to me, it's such an individual thing in terms of how it meets a person best.
Totally. Well, we were talking before the interview about this beautiful video on the Neurogenic integration website.
We just put that up. Yeah.
Okay. And you're filming in Norway, is that right?
Yeah. Well, Siv and I were the ones who started this Neurogenic integration platform, and she's in Norway. And so this past summer, August of 2025, I was there with my family, which was fun. We were there for about a month, and we did some just travel. But Steve and I did a bunch of work on the neurogenic integration materials and this and that. And then one thing we did was we did a cool 1-day immersive uh, session for people who were already pretty regular. There are people who'd been tremoring with Steve, for quite some time in their regular community, but we wanted to kind of have just this immersion day and so it was fun because we did group work, we did some breath work, I did some Feldenkrais work, and then part of what we played with is sort of like sometimes we were indoors, sometimes we had a venue right along a river. And so we set up along the river. We spent some time where people could find a spot to tremor on their own. Some people kind of like, just wanted to be right there. Like there's these rocks you could get to just sort of nestled on the river. So, we kind of combined it a little bit with part of the framing is that, we think of nature as out there, and it is, in a sense, wilderness and the natural world and Mother Earth. And it's also in here, and that I think that things that connect us to our intrinsic biology, like TRE or other practices, can kind of develop this intimacy with our own natural state. And then there's just something fun about kind of connecting inside and outside, being in natural spaces that I think can be moving and powerful. So and we had a video guy there, which was cool because then we had such a fun, playful day, and so we just put that little. He edited it, put that, and then so it's now on the homepage for the neurogenic integration page. But I'm glad you got to see that.
Well, yeah, I thought of it with just this thought of like discussion of different styles of TRE. When I saw that video, I was so moved because I was like, wow, these are humans doing this very natural, unrepressed process in nature. Like, is there anything more human than this? Like, it was just so amazing and beautiful to me. And I mean, it just brought this sense of like, wow, like freedom to be a human and all of our expression, all of our like quirks and weird biology and like including all of that is like, yeah, we are nature, and that is a totally natural expression. And it kind of goes back to where we started in this conversation. It's like there's some sort of repression of our nature that often leads to chronic illness. And often when we have a major emotional event or trauma, like the body probably does have the instinct to tremor, but we're so detached, we're so removed from that. And so I'm so excited you're doing this work, Alex, because it's like, if young kids knew about this biological response at a young age, like think about how
Totally
amazingly different their life could
Totally.
be.
Well, what's cool is there's a ton of people working on that. There's this like consortium of people all around the world who are doing that because you're not alone in thinking that teenagers and learn and mostly it's sort of learning about it from a capacity building framework. Not so much of from a trauma recovery framework, but more from a resiliency building but this idea of giving that as a tool to youth, I totally agree that that's a big opportunity. And luckily, there's people really making good headway with that.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just taking the stigma out of like living in a body and what it wants to do and how it wants to express. I just think that's so important. And also with the sort of spirit of primal trust and the journal speak work is like, in journal speak there's this sort of idea of this like emotional reservoir that just keeps filling and filling with trauma in the body. And then we get to a point in our lives and it just overflows into this system and expresses either as migraines or back pain or an autoimmune.
Sure.
And so discharging that survival energy in the body with tremoring is just, I think, I just wish every human could have this tool to not have to have the chronic illness hellish nightmare. That's what people do.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, well,
yeah,
hopefully, I mean,
yeah, it's really
yeah,
powerful.
I don't know. I mean, there's a lot of stressors in the world, and there's a lot of disruption and bad things. But like, I don't know. I mean, by personality, I tend to be a little bit optimistic. But but the way that I see, things like Primal Trust, when I came to TRE and other frameworks, like to me, it gives me a sense of optimism because I don't know if you agree with this or not. I don't think it's so, um, learning something about your biology and autonomic nervous system, becoming aware of it and learning that it's adjustable and steerable. And then not only at the biology level, but as you say, more at the level of the psyche and our sort of our access to our sort of authentic self versus not. I don't know. As I spend time in this world, yeah, it's challenging to do these learning and growth and re-regulation processes. But then I've also seen that like it's like pretty doable. Like there's like it's totally possible. There's so many success stories that it gives me kind of an optimism that the information is getting out there, and maybe that's one thing that's good about our hyper technological world is that we can, that like these tools, and even the way Dr. Kat developed her framework, she didn't have to sort of invent every piece. She said, "Oh wow, Stanley Rosenberg did this great stuff with the vagus nerve. Oh cool, Peter Levine does this." So she was able to pull things that worked. I think that's sort of a feature of our contemporary world where people really are learning from each other, hybridizing, repackaging. I think that's helping accessibility and getting the message out there. What do you think?
Totally. Oh, I think it's really exciting, life-giving, amazing work.
Mm.
I mean, it's like I find that yeah, I think it's important to kind of yeah, reframe that as like it's getting to know yourself on a really deep, beautiful level. And that's kind of the whole invitation of this work is like, understanding your true nature, understanding who you are underneath all the limbic responses and the conditioning. And that's just like such an incredible opportunity. And sometimes, it's an uncomfortable path to get to the point where you have to learn those things. But yes, I think Primal Trust does a beautiful job of weaving together really the best of the best in what the modern, like recent neuroscience, and making it accessible and also making it a lifestyle that it's like you don't have to do an hour of brain training every day. You can just take little chunks and breaks and, like, and it really comes back to just building the skill of attuning with the body. Like, oh, I notice I'm shallow breathing. Like having that continual ability to come back into presence with the body is like what a beautiful way to live. It's just so good. It feels so good to be connected to yourself.
Yeah.
So I think it's an exciting time for sure.
Yeah. I totally agree. Well, okay, so let's maybe finish with, anybody who's going to join us on December 18th for the program. And yeah, I think you and I were going to kind of roughly divide the time where maybe you had 45 minutes to an hour of uh, on the Primal Trust side, and then we will segue into some tremoring tied in with what we've been doing with you, and then sort of conversation and debrief. But yeah, well, maybe just get what's a snapshot version of what we may cover in your piece.
Sure. I think my goal with this workshop is to introduce kind of a menu of the level one practices so people we can practice them together. I'll teach them. And then for participants to leave with just, one or two of these practices where they feel a really good response in the body. It works for their physiology. Sometimes people like the eye movements. We can try some breath work. We can even do some what we call havening, which is just running the hands down the sides of the arm as sort of a self-soothing, self-containment practice. I will introduce a menu of practices that you can use to self-regulate throughout the day or share with your kids. So that this is like, I teach another workshop called Nervous System Regulation for Busy People, because it's like, this stuff is so simple. I mean, you can really activate the vagus nerve in like 2 minutes and feel so much calmer. So it's simple, it's accessible, it feels really, really doable. Like, you don't have to know a lot of the science, and it's understanding what your body wants, like it says yes to, essentially.
Right.
And when the body says yes, or so, we feel a parasympathetic shift, sort of a calming of the mind, a calming of the body. Often when we work with the vagus nerve, you'll feel salivation, tearing of the eyes, this sort of response that the vagus nerve is being activated. So yeah, I want it to be quick, simple, little things that you can do through the day to regulate.
Cool.
Yeah.
That sounds very fun. Well, Lindsay, boy, I really appreciate taking time just to hear about your personal journey and how much meaning and joy and enthusiasm you have for your work. It's very cool to hear about.
Yes, thank you. Thanks for taking the time. It feels almost surreal to be, this deep into this long journey and be like, wow, I really made it out. I made it through the other side, and now the last part of that hero's journey is bringing back what you learned to your community. So I'm really happy to be doing that.
Very cool.
Yeah.
All right. Good.
Thanks.
All right. Thank you.
That's it for today's episode. We hope you found inspiration and new insights into the power of neurogenic tremoring.
If you enjoyed this conversation, make sure to subscribe, share, and leave a review. It really helps us reach more people interested in this transformative work.
And if you want to dive deeper, connect with us. Or to learn more about our sessions, courses, and upcoming trainings, head over to neurogenicintegration.com.